Welcome back, everyone, to LexTalk. You've tuned into Season 5, Episode 3.
Great to be back.
Today, we're doing a deep dive into something really central to education here in Thailand.
Hmm.
English in our universities. It's a huge topic. And if you're an educator, a parent, or honestly just anyone interested in language learning, this one's definitely for you.
Absolutely. We've been looking into this quite a bit. We want to explore, the requirements, the challenges students and lecturers face,
Right.
but also, crucially, some of the really cool, innovative solutions popping up on campuses.
And how teacher training is adapting too. We want to give you, our listeners, a really solid understanding of where things stand and maybe where they're headed.
Exactly, a comprehensive picture.
Before we jump in, just a quick reminder, don't forget to follow LexTalk on all our platforms. We're on our website, YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, SoundCloud, and Spotify.
Just search for @LexTalk Podcast. We'd love to have you join the conversation there, too.
Okay, so let's start with the basics. English is often a requirement, right, for pretty much all undergraduate students in Thai universities.
That's generally the case, yeah. It shows a real recognition of how important English is globally.
But that requirement itself creates, well, some immediate pressures, doesn't it?
It really does. The biggest one probably is the sheer range of English proficiency among incoming first-year students.
Ah, okay. So you have everyone lumped together.
Well, often in these mandatory foundation courses, you absolutely can. You might have someone who's had years of, really intensive English study
Right.
sitting right next to someone whose exposure has been much more limited.
Hmm. And that must make teaching those courses incredibly difficult.
It's a huge challenge, and it links directly to another point, the lack of, shall we say, consistent or maybe sufficiently detailed placement testing.
Ah, so universities might not always have a clear picture of where each student actually is with their English when they start?
Exactly. Without really robust placement, you risk creating these unbalanced classrooms. The teaching might fly over some students' heads.
Making them feel discouraged.
Right. Or it might be too basic for others who then just switch off because they're not being challenged.
Yeah, I can see that. So you could genuinely have, say, a first-year student majoring in English
Pretty proficient already.
in the exact same general English class as maybe an engineering student
Yeah.
whose whole focus has been completely different and maybe their English isn't as strong yet.
Precisely. It's a classic example. And it's almost guaranteed that one or possibly both of those students isn't getting what they truly need from that specific class.
And I guess that initial mismatch then echoes through the entire English program.
It certainly can. It sets the stage for some other common challenges. Like, think about class sizes.
Oh, yeah, often quite large in foundation courses, right? Lecture halls sometimes.
Definitely. And when you have, say, 50, 60, or even more students in a language class, well, certain things become very difficult.
Like giving individual feedback.
That's a major one. Providing meaningful, personalized feedback on writing assignments or correcting speaking in a useful way. It's incredibly time-consuming, almost impossible at that scale.
And speaking practice itself must be limited too.
Very much so. How do you ensure every student gets adequate time to actually use the language, to practice speaking and build confidence when the clock is ticking and the room is full?
It leans towards more passive learning then, I suppose. More listening than doing.
That's often the outcome, yeah. Large groups, maybe some student reluctance, perhaps a lack of confidence. It can easily lead to environments where students primarily receive information, like in a lecture, rather than actively producing language, taking risks, experimenting, which is, essential for language acquisition.
And what about the materials they're using, the textbooks and resources?
That's another significant hurdle sometimes. The issue of outdated or maybe just non-contextual teaching materials.
What do you mean by non-contextual?
Well, think about those general English textbooks. They might cover broad topics, but they don't connect directly to what the students are actually studying in their major.
Right. So the engineering student we mentioned might be learning vocabulary about, I don't know, shopping.
Exactly. Or maybe general business etiquette, when what they really need is the language for technical reports or describing processes.
So it's English, but not necessarily the right English for their future needs.
Precisely. A nursing student might need medical terminology and patient communication skills, not just generic conversational phrases. The vocabulary, the topics, the situations might just feel irrelevant.
Which points to another gap you mentioned earlier, support for specific academic English skills.
Yes, absolutely. Things like how to structure a research paper in English, how to give an effective academic presentation, how to handle citations properly.
Crucial university skills.
Totally essential. But students often don't get enough explicit training in these areas. English for academic purposes, or EAP, sometimes gets overlooked in the focus on more general English proficiency.
Okay, so we've laid out some pretty significant challenges. Diverse levels, placement issues, large classes, passive learning, materials, lack of EAP
It
focus.
sounds a bit bleak when you list it like that.
It does, but the good news is things aren't static, right? Universities are responding, innovating. What are some of the positive shifts
Oh,
happening?
definitely. One of the most promising developments is the real growth in English for specific purposes, ESP.
Okay, tell us more about ESP. How does that work?
It's basically a move away from the one-size-fits-all approach. It recognizes that, say, a business student needs different English skills than a hospitality student or an engineering student.
So tailoring the content.
Exactly. We're
Yeah.
seeing more and more dedicated ESP courses designed specifically for fields like nursing, hotel management, IT, engineering, business, you name it.
So the content is directly relevant to their future careers or academic work.
Yes. They learn the specific vocabulary, the communication styles, the types of tasks they'll encounter in their chosen field.
That sounds much more practical and motivating.
It often is. And these ESP courses are getting quite sophisticated. They might include things like industry-specific projects, case studies,
Real world stuff.
yeah, even guest lectures from professionals working in those fields. It makes the language learning very applied, very relevant.
That's a great way to bridge the gap. What else is driving change? You mentioned internationalization earlier.
Right, the push for internationalization in Thai universities is having a big impact. One outcome is the expansion of CLIL programs.
CLIL, content and language integrated learning. Can you give us a quick refresher on that?
Sure. CLIL is basically teaching an academic subject like science or geography or economics through English.
Hmm.
So students are learning the subject matter
Uh-huh.
and improving their English skills at the same time
Yeah.
because English is the medium of instruction for that content.
So learning about physics in English.
Precisely. It's a dual focus. And related to that, driven by the same internationalization goals, is the rise of EMI.
English medium instruction.
Yeah, where entire degree programs, or at least significant parts of them, are taught completely in English.
Wow, that's a major commitment. It really signals preparing students for a global stage.
It does. It's a significant trend.
And how is technology fitting into this picture? We hear so much about ed tech.
Technology-enhanced language learning, or TEL, is definitely becoming more integrated. Blended learning is a big one.
Combining face-to-face with online.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Using online platforms for exercises, resources, maybe pre-class activities. The flipped classroom model is also gaining traction.
Where students cover the lecture material online beforehand.
Right, so that precious class time can be used for more interactive activities, discussion, problem solving, actual language practice. It helps address that large class size issue we talked about.
Smart, making better use of the time together.
Yeah. And beyond structured models, there's also the use of self-access e-learning platforms, letting students work at their own pace, plus just leveraging the amazing resources already out there.
Yeah.
Oh, things like YouTube, TED Talks for listening practice, online news sites for reading, digital writing tools like Grammarly or Quillbot to help with composition. Teachers are getting really creative incorporating these readily available tools.
That makes sense. You mentioned a specific example from Kane University with podcasts.
Ah, yes, that was a nice one. They implemented podcast-based listening journals. Students listen to English podcasts, often related to their field of study.
Okay.
And then they create reflective journals about what they learned. Sometimes these journals are even audio recordings themselves.
Oh, interesting. So it hits listening comprehension, critical thinking.
And digital literacy, too.
Yeah.
And it uses a medium, podcast, that's already popular and accessible for many students. Very engaging.
That's genuinely innovative. Now, all these changes in teaching methods and materials must mean that teacher training and support needs to evolve too, right?
Absolutely critical.
Yeah.
You can't change the approach without supporting the educators. Continuous professional development, CPD, is key.
So encouraging lecturers to keep learning.
Yes. Participating in workshops, attending conferences run by organizations like Ditasol or CMEO Regional Language Center. Staying updated on the latest pedagogy, research, and technologies.
Makes sense. It's an ongoing process for teachers too.
It has to be. And technology integration isn't just for students. It's also about training lecturers to effectively incorporate technology into their lesson planning and delivery.
Are universities offering specific support internally?
Many are. Things like dedicated English labs or language resource centers for faculty are becoming more common. Peer mentorship programs are also great experienced teachers sharing strategies with newer colleagues.
Building that internal capacity.
Exactly. And supporting faculty to do action research in their own classrooms to see what really works.
And beyond the formal teaching staff and curriculum, what about fostering a broader English-speaking environment on campus?
That's increasingly recognized as important too. Encouraging student-led initiatives is a great way to do this.
Like English clubs.
Yeah, English clubs, maybe language cafes, conversation groups. These create informal, low-pressure spaces for students to just practice speaking, build confidence, meet peers, and use English outside the demands of coursework.
Sounds like a really positive development, helping to build that confidence to speak.
It really is. It complements the formal instruction well.
So, wrapping this up, it feels like the landscape of English in Thai universities is, well, really dynamic. There are definitely persistent challenges.
No doubt about that. Pedagogy, materials, delivery, assessment, lots to keep working on.
But there's also clearly a lot of progress, a lot of innovation, and real dedication from educators and institutions.
I think that's the key takeaway. Significant strides have been made in integrating English more effectively. The ongoing efforts, the willingness to try new things like ESP, CLIL, blended learning, it's genuinely encouraging.
And there seems to be huge potential if universities can keep collaborating, sharing what works, learning from each other.
Absolutely. That spirit of creativity and collaboration is crucial for building English language environments that really benefit everyone, students and educators alike.
Well, this has been a fascinating deep dive. Thanks so much for sharing all those insights.
My pleasure. It's an important conversation to have.
And for all of you listening, remember this conversation doesn't have to end here. Keep exploring with us. Don't forget to follow LexTalk on our website, YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, SoundCloud, and Spotify.
Just look for @LexTalk Podcast. We always appreciate your feedback and ideas.
Now, looking ahead to our next deep dive, we're going to tackle something else that looms large in the world of English language learning. Standardized tests. Think IELTS, TOEFL.
Oh, yeah. Big topic. What do they really measure? How fair are they?
Exactly. We'll be getting into all of that next time.
Looking forward to it.
But until then, from all of us here at LexTalk, let's talk, let's learn, let's Lex Talk.